All right. Cheers for coming on today, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No worries. So to start off, obviously your podcast is called the Politics and Punk Rock Podcast.
Yeah.
So my first question is, what does punk rock mean to you? So what philosophy is behind it? How does it affect culture? Because it's sort of new to me.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. There are so many different definitions of it, and there's such a rich history of not only the music but the movement and the philosophies that embody it. And I would in just a quick soundbite, I would say punk rock is an attitude that you either have it or you don't. And it's basically a skeptic, um uh, being skeptical of any type of authority or power structure, be it government, be it the church, be it your family. It doesn't matter what it is. It's you being on a personal quest for knowledge and truth, and not allowing yourself to be controlled, and having the courage to speak up and speak out about injustice and about tyranny, anything that prevents the development of the individual by their own free will. I think that's what punk rock is. It's basically damn the man, fuck the system.
So with punk rock, from what I know of it today, I know it had a big following. Was it in the 70s or 80s?
Yeah, I think. Well, in England, it started in England. Pissed off people at the factory workers, or the big industrial revolution. As that progressed over the years, people started becoming disillusioned and kind of alienated from their work, and they started wanting to do something about it. Maybe they were overtaxed, maybe they were underpaid, and maybe they were having an increasingly difficult time taking care of themselves and their families. And they decided, hey, you know what? We're going to do something about it. And one of the things that they did is they made angsty, fast, obnoxious music. They wore angsty, crazy, obnoxious clothing, piercings, mohawks. Basically anything that was normal, status quo, run of the mill. They were going to thumb their nose at that, and they were going to go against that. So, and then over time, the music and the attitude evolved and came to the United States. And now there's punk rock scenes all over the world. I was just looking the other day at Shanghai, China's got an awesome punk rock scene, and Japan. And so there's the spirit of it all over the world. And I think that's a good thing for culture, for all cultures.
Yeah, do you think as well? I don't know much about punk rock. I can't say I'm a massive punk rock listener, although I do like all types of music. But for example, with the hip hop, I'm more of a hip hop listener. And I do recall probably around the 90s when NWA was around, there was a sort of punk rock-esque vibe to hip hop, which
Absolutely.
then sort of evolved into materialism. I guess that's where hip hop is at the moment. But there was a short spurt of sort of like fuck the police and, well, fuck the system, basically, that was coming out.
Definitely punk rock vibe. NWA, absolutely. Yep. So it's not just punk rock music as far as the rock aspect of it, but yeah, you can have the spirit of punk rock, in my opinion, in all forms of music.
Right, yeah, because I'm seeing it in sort of country music now. There's a lot. I mean, country music back in the day as well, but it's sort of becoming more popular now, and that is punk rock in the sense that a lot of them are talking about the system and sort of the truth tellers, really.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that um, a lot. My generation, I was a Gen Xer, so in my generation, we had so much more freedom. And I think a lot of my generation, when we were kids, we kind of raised ourselves. Our parents were pretty hands off, and depending on where you come from, I guess that was my unique experience. But a lot of people in the United States during that generation, that was when the grunge scene came, and Nirvana, and all of those Seattle bands came out of that. And the popular music in the States before that was the big hair rock, the 80s, Motley Crue, and all those bands. But at the same time, you had a punk rock scene that was kind of on the underground. They were playing small clubs. They were getting really crazy, moshing, stage diving. People were jumping on stage, jumping off, and it became the punk rock music scene became more about the experience and the camaraderie and the like-mindedness than it necessarily was about the music. You know, and so, and I think that a lot of labels at the time tried to kind of take what they could of those bands, like Nirvana specifically, that was kind of a punk rock band just playing clubs, you know, not very technical music, 3 or 4 chord songs, but they just put all the passion on and all the energy into it. And, you know, they called Nirvana the voice of a generation during those years. So I think that was my first introduction in my generation to what punk rock was and how it had evolved and what it meant to me. Not necessarily at the time did I know the history of it, and I kind of, you know, learned about all the older bands and the you know, Sex Pistols, the Ramones, the, you know, all the bands, the Clash, Black Flag, you know, all the old school, and even before that, MC5, New York Dolls. I mean, the list goes on and on. So once you kind of see the progression of it, you can kind of see the common ideas and beliefs and opinions, and that is what it has been since its inception, was this anti authority, against all tyranny, you know, um uh giving people a place to go express themselves freely, without judgment. And I think that's what a lot of people, that's all they could ever ask for. And so that's why I think it was so attractive to so many people over the years, for sure.
So when you were younger listening to punk rock, was it punk rock that made you more politically aware, or were you politically aware and started listening to punk rock?
I think uh I think when I was young, I started trying to read the lyrics to songs and I didn't quite understand all of them, but I wanted to. I was like, what are these guys talking about? Like, how, you know, I've never heard of this, I've never heard of that, whatever. What, you know, maybe I didn't learn it in school. Um, you know, it's a lot of people around the world don't necessarily know the history of other countries. And you know, especially what jumps to mind is Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine had a lot of lyrics about what was going on in Mexico and in Central America during um, the 80s and even before that. And I was like, why do they hate America? Why are they so anti-American? What, you know, what is it about the American government and the military that they've been doing to these people that is different from the story we Americans are being told, specifically through the media? So that kind of stuff started sparking my curiosity. And then I was in the United States Navy right out of high school. I served as an operations specialist in the United States Navy for 4 years. And I was at sea for 3.5 of those 4 years. I traveled all around the world twice. And so I got to experience many different cultures and experience different walks of life. And I was able to see how things are done differently and how cultural differences, you know, differ for sure all around the world. And so that kind of raised my awareness of things. And then when I came back to the States after my Navy days, I started playing in punk rock bands. And so, and I started writing music, and I wanted to, you know, I felt like I had something to say, whether I just wanted to express myself about, you know, things that were going on in my life, or if something that was pissing me off in society, I wanted to talk shit about it. So I was going to put that in a song. And it became a therapeutic, expressive thing where like I needed to practice every week. I needed to play shows. I needed to connect with people. And I think that, and then when I went to college during those years, also I read religiously. If you look at my website, politicsandpunkrockpodcast.com, the about me section, I kind of talk about how my history from the military to punk rock bands to reading religiously when I was a young kid, or young college aged guy. Um, you know, I became obsessive about it. I did, like, all I ever did was play guitar, read, and write. So, um, and then over the years, you know, you get a little bit older, you get a little bit wiser. Um, And then the only thing I really knew was military, government, politics. Like, I read so much philosophy. I read, everything I could get my hands on, history, economics. Um, and then I knew punk rock too. And I had a lot of connections with the punk rock scene and other bands. And I was like, hey, I started listening to Joe Rogan at the time. And I was like, okay, this podcast thing seems to be pretty cool and informative. And I think there's going to be a bright future there. So I decided to take the two things I knew, uh, being a worldly guy and playing punk rock and writing punk rock songs, and I put it together and formed my show. So I think that's kind of how that was the progression for me.
Nice. You know how with from what you've sort of gone over there, you've with music, what I see today, back then when it wasn't so much like the music that people, the upcoming generation sort of listen to at the moment, it's sort of gifted to them on a plate to say, this is what's popular, this is what's trending on Spotify, this is what you need to listen to. If you think about Taylor Swift and Drake and all that stuff, it's sort of like the consumers of the music sort of told like this is what is popular and this is what you need to listen to. But back in the day when it wasn't as much as sort of gifted to you, you had to go and find your own music for yourself. And there was like a culture of different genres of music and different bands. You sort of form these subcultures within. But now it's all sort of you either listen to the popular music or you listen, or you're still involved in all the subcultures, which is probably the older generation. What do you think? How do you think that came about? How has this happened to a point? Same with entertainment in terms of TV and movies as well. You're sort of told like this is what's trending now on Netflix, rather than people going out and sort of sourcing their own material. Then how do you think that came around where everyone's just sort of channeled into listening to what they're told to?
It's a great question. I would probably say a few things. One would be how technology has advanced and how things have changed, and you can get, streaming. People used to have record labels that would go and sign bands and front all this money for them to record and put them on tour and then sell merch and hopefully make their money back that way. But now people don't really buy albums that much anymore, and the experience of buying a 10 to 15 song record and reading the lyrics and looking at the artwork and all that kind of stuff, back in the compact disc days, that was a unique experience that I think people connected to bands and to lyrics and to art more so. And now that's all gone away. Now you're on streaming, you don't even buy records anymore, you buy a song or two and then you put it on a playlist with a bunch of other songs, and you don't really get to you don't get that immersive experience. You're just listening to the music, right? So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it, I think, is power and control, and maybe even intelligence, community involvement, and infiltration of music in order to change it to be presented to the people in a way that is more in line with their agenda and not so much about you, the listener, wanting to uh, enjoy art. You know what I mean? Like, I think that the big power and the big money has infiltrated music and has said, we're not going to do this, this, and this anymore. These are the things that we're going to start doing moving forward. And we're going to start signing bands and getting artists on board that will play ball with us and will do what we want them to do. Like you mentioned hip hop before. There's that there's that famous meeting with all these old gangster rap era hip hop guys saying that some CIA guy came in and sat him down one day and said, "Hey, we're going to make you, rich and famous. All you got to do is agree to push this type of music and talk about the things we want you to talk about, and we'll make you richer than you've ever dreamed of." And they made him an offer that they can't refuse, basically. And I always make the joke that that's called taking the blood oath and joining the big club, the Illuminati masters that run control the world, right? So I think it's a combination of and I say that on my show all the time. Technology. I just got done doing a whole thing about this, about how as technology evolves, it not only changes culture and the world, but it changes us. It changes people. You are almost forced to participate in the new technology advances, or else you're going to be left behind. And at some point, I think human beings, not to go off track here, but human beings are going to have to decide for themselves where the line is. How much tech is enough tech? And if we go past that, are we losing more and more of our humanity, and are we becoming more and more robotic and connected to machines over time? You know what I mean? So anyway, but to get back to the music thing, I think that's what happened. I think the Enlightenment and the Renaissance time in history, where the arts and culture was being born, that has sadly, over time gone away. And I make the argument on my show all the time that I think that's the only way to save the world, is we have to return to the Enlightenment principles that built the civilized world. And part of that is focusing on arts and music, culture, drama, theater. Like that has to be a part of society, in my opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And definitely, when you talk about the advancements in technology and the way it's sort of, the more advanced we go, the more everything's sort of set out in front of you. If you want to look at it from the perspective of music, as you just explained, then we're at a point now where technology has advanced so much that the music's there for you, where you just listen to it. You don't really choose what you want to listen to. It's sort of going that way on the other side of arts, where, for example, you've got AI, which is now producing the photos for you, and it's producing your videos for you to consume. And I was looking at, I know ChatGPT's out, and they're doing something called Sorrow or Sora, which is going to be the video one. I was checking out, like, well, where is it? Why is it not out yet? And it's still going through checks to make sure the responses are diverse enough, which they have enough representation in, and so on and so forth. And it just made me think, well, that's that gone now, because everything's just going to be replaced. All the imagery and fascinating photos and art that you see is all sort of going to be just replaced by what they produce. And by they, it's only a select few companies that are going to be producing it.
And what AI works off a database of data, like a big database of data. That's what somebody else has created in the past. So it's not creating anything necessarily new. Whereas humans, when they create something, they're creating something new. Whereas the AI is just using old data and creating something out of that old data, which isn't new.
Yeah, and that's part of what I mean by this what's real knowledge and intelligence versus what is synthetic artificial intelligence. And there is that symbiotic relationship, like you said, like we are programming it, so it is going to be human-like in some ways, but its capabilities, over time, if it does become self-aware, and it's the Terminator, and all those movies come to life, that again, that goes back to my previous point. Like, at what point is tech, is it too much tech? At what point is it controlling us? And on this point, I always think about that line, or about that scene from The Matrix. Have you guys seen the Matrix movies? The one where they're in Zion and Neo is walking with one of the big government guys, and they're walking through all these big machines, in the whatever. And this guy's explaining to Neo, like, I have no idea how all of these machines work. I have no clue how they came into existence. I don't know what they do, but I know that I exist because of them. And that the only way that humans are still alive in this world is because of the machines and because of the tech. So it's just such an interesting scene to me now, looking at how reality and the real world has evolved to almost that point in history and time where we're going to start having to face these questions, whether we like it or not. Artificial intelligence is only going to become better, bigger, better, stronger, smarter. It's only going to become more and more aware over time. Ray Kurzweil, one of the founders for Google, said that, he wrote that book, The Singularity is Near. And that's going to be the day where knowledge and information and intelligence advances so much so that it'll do some type of, the singularity will change the world forever is what his argument is. So
When did he write that book?
I don't know when, but multiple people have told me about it, and I kind of thumbed through it, and I've been watching some of his videos. I played a video of him talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson on my show a while back, and fascinating guy. But the way he explains it is that he basically says exactly that. Like, there will come a point in time where machine learning is going to outpace human learning, and if it does become self-aware, we better watch out because who knows what's going to happen.
The thing that I find most sort of say worrying about it is, as human in our human nature, we're designed to continuously try and improve, try and make things better, try and make things easier, more convenient, and we're constantly trying to evolve onto a bigger and better being of self. But it's like what Aaron said about AI, for example. It's only taking history. It's got no projection of future or anything like that. It can only possibly take history for its data. So when it gets to a point where we become so lazy that everything's just AI sort of run, we've sort of hit a ceiling then of, well, we're stuck because no one's educated enough, no one's can even be bothered to try and do anything to break these shackles. AI just keeps running us in this sort of cycle of just being in existence. That's what worries me the most, I think, about AI.
Yeah, I think what, when you think about how it can evolve over time, I always assume, I guess, I don't, this is just my theory, I guess, my projection, but it's gonna create a world of a split society for human beings where it's kind of like Brave New World. I don't know if you guys have seen the TV show Brave New World or read the book. But basically what happens is that the technology civilization breaks away from the old ways, and they kind of fly off in some big spaceship world like the Death Star kind of thing, and they live away from the planet, where all the rest of the people that didn't want to participate in that tech world stay. So I think that's what's going to happen. And it's kind of the same concept as the movie Demolition Man. I don't know if you guys have seen Demolition Man, where the people want to live. There's some people that want to live in the popular
live
culture,
underground.
and then the other
Yeah.
people that don't want to participate in that world have to live underground, and they have to be live off the land, and they have to, it's like basically the Stone Age and the AI tech world. And I think that's what's going to happen, because you're going to have people that are going to say, they're going to willingly sit in the chair and say, plug me in, hell yeah, put me in the matrix, I don't ever want to deal with the real world ever again. And then you're going to have people that are going to be like, I don't want to live in that crazy tech AI, I don't know who I am anymore world. So they're going to say, fuck that, I'm not doing it. They're going to be punk rock about it. They're going to say, fuck you and your tech world, right? And so then they're going to go do their own thing and live with Dennis Leary in the sewers, like they do in Demolition Man, eating rat burgers and stuff, So I think that is the inevitable outcome of the advances of AI and big tech over time. And when I think about the pharmaceutical and the medical industry takeover and advancements, the vaccines, the pills, how good they're getting at performing certain surgeries, it's only a matter of time before every human created that gets to come into the world is a test tube, basically. You know what I mean? I fear the day where we really do become assembly line, created it by machines and tech, and where they're using CRISPR to perfect your DNA so that there's no imperfections, and it sounds like science fiction, it sounds like sci-fi, but that's the logical playing out of these ideas and realities when you think about it, in my opinion. So yeah, crazy. The future looks nuts to me.
Is CRISPR a Chinese-based company?
You know what? Probably. I feel like China is going to take over a lot of the stuff that we're talking about right now. But that may be. The first time I ever heard of it was
I've heard Rogan talk about it quite a bit, and I've always been meaning to look into it, but never.
Yeah, I don't know where it originated, but I know that the technology exists to where they've successfully sequenced the entire human genome, and a lot of these alternative health and holistic healing anti um mainstream medicine here in the States. A lot of these people are talking about hydrogen water and all these different supplements that are better than the big pharma drugs, and um I forgot where I was going with that as far as what was that guy Gary Breck? Oh, talking about the genome. So a lot of these guys now, that's the first thing they do is they say take this DNA sample thing, and they look and see if you have any disposition to cancer or to heart disease, or and then apparently there's ways that they can fix that, and they can introduce supplements or amino acids or whatever that can help you with your deficiency. And that's just step one to, maybe immortality. Maybe one day we will get to the point where we've figured out a way for humans to live forever. And at that point, I think we will have fully merged with machines in some way in order to make that happen. So yeah, it's a brave new world out there.
It's like one thing that Rogan's has said quite a few times about aliens, and the way we look at aliens, the way we draw them, describe them. They're all the same sort of grey-bodied, sort of emotionless, just thing. But if you actually try and project the future and everything we're doing to ourselves and around us, we are trying to make ourselves into that sort of emotionless, standardized version of a human. So I think that's definitely got legs, what he talks about there.
Yeah, that's basically the entire story. I recently, well, you said you listened to my last episode where I was reading that Rudolf Steiner, Rudolf Steiner was kind of an esoteric arts, kind of an occult guy. I think he was like the founder of theosophy or anthroposophy or one of those belief systems. And he has this really cryptic quote where he talks about this future vaccine that's going to remove the soul and spirit of man, to where they'll make the etheric body loose and the physical body, and the idea of a higher power or a god or an intelligent creator will basically go away, and human beings will be treated with this crazy vaccine at birth, to where you literally become a materialistic automaton with no emotion. And a lot of conspiracy minded people think that that's what AI is the birth of Satan's world. Archon demon energies operate within machines because they can't function in human bodies. I mean, I'm going down a rabbit hole right now, but there are a lot of people that think this stuff. And 100 years ago, this guy Rudolf Steiner said that this is their plan. In the future, we're going to create a vaccine that's going to remove the ability for the human being to experience spiritual life. And it seems now 100 years later that that's exactly what the goal of these occultist, world planner, big club, elitist people are. So, is it speculation and theory, or was he on to something? Did he know some things that these secret society people have been dreaming up for years, centuries, So who knows? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to keep looking on my quest. I'm going to figure it out sooner or later. So
Yeah, I remember not too long ago, but on the journey that me and Aaron have been doing with the channel, I guess we kind of started the channel, and it was very tech orientated, not specifically about the dark side of tech, but just tech in general. And there was a point where I don't know why we were comparing sort of technology as we see it today with the seven deadly sins. And as we were looking at each of the deadly sins, we was like, holy shit, like technology makes everyone do each of the seven deadly sins every day without even knowing they're doing them.
very interesting how that works out, doesn't it? Yep. Very interesting.
It definitely ties into what you're talking about. But then, yeah, when you project in the future and looking at AI, you can just see that they're hammering in these deadly sins. Why quite well, actually.
Yeah, a lot of gluttony, a lot of lust, a lot of sloth, all that stuff. Oh yeah.
A lot of pride.
And yeah, hedonism, it's they really are. They're really, it feels like they're trying to destroy all the Enlightenment principles that built the civilized world. Like I said, everything uh that gave people stability and morality and a sense of community, um rites of passage for the young becoming the old adults, mature, that are going to take over for the elders. Like all of that mentality is going away, and people are getting isolated more and more. Their faces in the tech more and more, and now it's from an early age. So these younger generations they're not going to know what the old ways were like. They're not going to experience a world where you got to go run out inside and play with the toys with your friends and run around the neighborhood, and nobody was worried because everybody had faith in their community. They thought that it was safe, and there was this sense of community that gave you that sense of safety. Like I can trust my neighbors because all of us are like-minded. We're all on the same page. Maybe we all go to church together. We all basically share the same values. And, with the technology and the influx of multiple different cultures being spread throughout the world now, I think it is a perfect storm of multiple tactics that the big club planners are using to get this agenda passed. And it's like as soon as you start realizing that something's going on in one realm, you all of a sudden you turn around and you realize that something was sneaking up on you that you weren't even aware of, and now they got you. So, it looks like a multifaceted, infiltration of everything people thought they knew about morality, decency, culture, civilization. And, it's like a big Black Mirror episode. One day we're going to wake up in a little tiny cubicle. We're going to walk into a room where you got to get on a bike and you have to ride bike and create energy for the machines. And that's how you make your money. And then it's like a 100% controlled civilization is what the future looks like to me. And I don't want to live in that world. So I feel like my generation is one of the last. I did a show a long time ago with a buddy of mine called 1 Foot In, 1 Foot Out. And the concept of that was we 40-something-year-olds nowadays remember a time before, we had 1 foot in the old world, 1 foot in the new world. And our generation kind of does bridge that gap between, I remember rotary phones and pay phones and Atari and Nintendo One. And you know what I mean? Like I remember a world where there was no AI, there was no podcasting, there was no internet. Like I lived before all of this stuff came into existence. And it's important. I think that's why a lot of my generation are podcasting and trying to sound the alarm. Like, look, please, we're pleading with the world. Pay attention to what used to be and how it used to be, because the more you get away from that and become unaware of it, they got us. They got all of us. And that's why I always emphasize people paying attention to their history, knowing their history, trying to get to the bottom of what happened and those that came before you, so that you can, first of all, locate yourself and who you are in the world, know who you are, right? And now you can make projections. Okay, well, this is how it used to be. This is how it looks like it's going. Is that good for us? And if not, how do we change it? And then furthermore, can we change it? The more that government takes a little bit more here, slow usurpations over time of your freedoms. I talk about it all the time. And, there is constant slow encroachment happening to humanity worldwide, globally. And I think that's premeditated. I think that is by design. I think that is the plan by the elitist, richest, most powerful aristocrats around the world. And I also think that this isn't the first time in history that this has happened. I think that my last episode, like you said, pattern recognition rantcast, I'm talking about pattern recognition. None of this is new. We're repeating what has already happened. And if you look at the old world stuff, like I got to give a shout out to Matt at Great Deception Podcast. he covers so much of the old world stuff, the world fairs, the, is the timeline real? Have the secret societies hijacked history and told us a complete farce of what really happened? And, and all of this philosophy, logically, in my opinion, leads to simulation theory. Are we really living in a simulation? Is this world that we live in and we call real, human beings being in human bodies in this realm, right? Are we really a simulation society? Are we really a video game that was created by, ancient or futuristic humans that learned how to break away, learned how to seed life on other planets, learned how to explore the universe, right? And now they're just creating civilizations on all these different worlds. And it's, Elon Musk talks about it all the time. He thinks that we're a computer chip on a what do you call that? What are they doing with Bitcoin? What do they call the computer
Blockchain?
where what's that?
Blockchain?
Yeah, blockchain. It's like he thinks that we're just blockchain in the universe, And so I don't know if it's real. It sounds science fiction, but when you put it all together, it's like maybe that is how it is. Maybe we are just constantly repeating history. Ray Dalio, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He's a big money guy here in the States. He wrote a book called Dealing with the Principles of a Changing World Order or something like that. And he talks about how every 80 to 100 years, there's four segments that we go through, and then it repeats. And it's like tragedy, Renaissance, building of culture, building of it, then it becoming perverted and disgusting and whatever it is, and then the decline happens, and then the disaster happens, and it's like this big cycle of death and rebirth. So very fascinating stuff. Yeah.
There's another book that explains that well called The Fourth Turning.
What's that?
There's another book that explains that well. It's called The Fourth Turning. I'm not sure if you've read it.
No, but I will.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that. I'll check it out. The Fourth Turning. Okay. You have to send me that. That's awesome. Yeah, I love stuff like that, because the more you wrap your head around those kind of ideas, the more it starts making sense, which is scary, because I'm like, am I really believing this stuff? But I'm like, logically, it starts to check out over time. So
Yeah, because when you're talking about a cycle and then you start comparing it to what you do know, and you do know the sun rises every day and then it sets, and then there's night and day, there's male and female. When you start looking at life from that level of, well, everything's got two sides of the coin, and it seems like you need complete balance to be able to sort of evolve up, but everything comes in cycles. So then when you start, all they're doing is basically looking at it from a much, much larger sort of viewpoint and saying, well, this is the same cycle that you see on a daily basis, but just split out among the 100 years, for example, like you've just said.
Yeah, it's like the average human life, isn't it? They're saying the cycle is 80 to 100 years, which is the average human life.
Isn't it interesting how that stuff lines up? Exactly. And they say that with wars and stuff too. They say like every 25 years, there's another big conflict somewhere. And that checks out with the 25 years is 1/4 of that 100 years we were talking about. So yeah, it's especially with the celestial stuff and the sun and the moon, like you said, all that that spirituality, esoteric kind of belief system that is, I guess, anti the church. A lot of people say. I think there's a lot of connection. I think both, the gods and the devils amongst us kind of borrow from each other. I think it's like you said, it is binary. It's yin yang. It's 1-0s. It's positive, negative. It's masculine, feminine. It's good and evil. And there is a balance to that I think makes reality and humanity exist. That's a lot of people make the argument that we're just a vibration and we can't see above or below a certain level of frequency. We can only see 2% of the color spectrum, they say. And so how enlightened and how egotistical should we be? Are we really the center of the universe, or are we is there so much more to reality that we are just completely unaware of? So yeah, interesting stuff.
And then when you're relating it to simulation theory and what you was just on about earlier, you could look at it as they're playing a game, or whatever they want to call what they're doing.
Yeah, like we're like a real life version of The Sims or something like that.
Yeah, but it's
You know?
almost as if they keep mission failing, and they're like, well, we didn't find complete balance on that level. Start the level again. Then they do it again, and it's like, nope, it
Yep.
went skewed again that time. Let's restart.
Yep. As soon as you complete the level, as soon as you learn the lesson, now you can move on. It's the same philosophy. Yeah. And I've always thought that. I'm like, if those ideas check out and this really is a simulation and this is the human life in this world really is created and being monitored by extraterrestrials that may or may not be humans. I always think about the Genesis story in Christianity where like humans were made in God's image. Well, what is God's image? If we're made in the image of God, then is God human? You know what I mean? Like how similar are we? And are they just more advanced? And so if all that checks out, I always wonder, I'm like, who's my operator? I'm always like, who's the guy that wakes up in the morning and is controlling everything about my life? Oh, Andrew's going to go to the bathroom now. Now Andrew's going to eat. Now Andrew's going to write songs. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder, like, is that the guardian angel idea evolved? Do we all have an operator, a guardian angel that literally is controlling our subconscious mind and everything that we do in this world? I don't know. The more you put all this stuff together, I think there's some possible validity to the simulation theory. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then you can just see it in the evolution of video games themselves. Like it's
100%.
with
Great,
VR and all of that
point.
as well. Yeah,
that's a great point.
There was a video that came out sort of when ChatGPT dropped and AI was a big talking point, and I think someone said, "Make me a video which shows the evolution of humans," and obviously it started from like caveman times and came up to it was just flicking through photos of evolution through caveman times, through all the Roman times, up until.
Try and find it.
Huh?
Shall I try and find it?
So yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And then it just kept going past where we are today. And when we had a VR headset on, and then the VR headset was like a part of our body, and it just kept going and going and going. And AI made this. And then at the end of it, it was just a bunch of wires plugged into a server.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it makes me think of like, this whole conversation makes me think of, are you guys familiar with, I think the woman that wrote, allegedly, I think this is true. I don't know for sure, but I heard somewhere, I saw a video of a woman saying that she either wrote or had her hand in writing the Matrix movies and the Terminator movies. And her argument was that Terminator was set in the time on that pattern where the machines become self-aware, right? And then they realize that this guy John Connor is going to destroy them, so they send someone back, to the past to take him out, right? And he ends up being the guy that he hooks up with John Connor's mom, and then he's born. So it's like this. It becomes this circular logic, time travel thing, right? But then she says that the evolution of the Terminator story becomes the Matrix story. And that's where the machines are becoming so evolved and have already taken over human society, and they've turned them into fields of humans, and now they self-replicate and create different kinds of robots for different kind of tasks. So if that story is true, then that also plays into the simulation theory idea. You know what I mean? That is the logical future timeline for us,
That's actually insane what you just said, actually thinking about it. One of the theories which I heard with a guest on the podcast not too long ago, which caught my attention a lot, was I forgot what the theory was called, but it's basically the theory that whoever was here before us then moved on, but then they created humans on Earth to mine for gold because they needed gold on their other planet for energy, and Earth has a lot of gold on it. And then it sort of related to the fact that we're all here and we're all really, really money hungry, and money's just basically an IOU note for gold. And it just sort of made me think like that is a very, very good point. Like all of us are just fixated on gold. That's all we really care about as human beings.
Yeah, and that I mean that came out of evolution as well. Like we used to, excuse me, used to barter and trade for what we needed, and then we discovered that valuable metals and all that, and then we decided that we could trade the valuable metals for goods and services, and then that's how it started. And then the evil amongst us took control of that and created usury and created taxation and all this stuff. So, it there is something to that, and I think it's ancient alien theory from like the ancient alien shows where they say that I think it's Zachariah Sitchin that
Yeah, Anunnaki, is it?
yeah, yeah, and that I think he theorized that we are a slave species that were created and seeded on this planet to mine gold for the ancients. Yeah, there is a theory that 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 theorizes that. So and the reason why I think the reason why they say it was gold is because gold can prevent extreme heat and all this kind of stuff. It's such a valuable thing for spaceships and allegedly. I mean, this is because there's people that don't even believe that space is real. So this is all just a story. But yeah, I have heard those theories before that it was to mine gold for the ancients, and maybe there's some truth there. Who knows?
Yeah, I think they said they destroyed the atmosphere on their planet, so they're using gold like as a layer to rebuild their atmosphere again.
That reminds me of Superman, and when Krypton got destroyed, you know what I mean? And then what did he do? He got shot to this new world where he had superhuman powers, and there's so many movies like I don't know if you guys get into the whole predictive programming thing, but I mean, I think it's irrefutable at this point that a lot of the stuff we talk about in the truth or conspiratorial world, um, they tell us about it in the movies and the media, and that's part of the brainwashing. That's part of the getting everybody on the same mental plane of existence where there's this commonality.
Yeah. Well, there's that film. That film came out at the end of last year. The Obamas produced it.
Leave This World Behind. I did a whole episode with the guys on that.
Yeah. So you talk about predictive programming. That's I think that movie is a
absolutely.
You don't even got to look too far back into it to realize what it could be. Because if Barack Obama's making media,
that's my biggest problem with it. Is like, why is this guy even involved in this, and why is he putting his name on it publicly? Don't you think you'd probably keep that quiet? Or are you an occult magician who doesn't want to ruin your karma, and you're flat out telling us what you're going to do, and nobody's picking up on it? I'm like, no, some of us are picking up on it, Mr. Obama. We know what you're doing, dude. Like,
well, even like I remember Aaron mentioned I hadn't even watched it, but then Aaron mentioned it to me. He's like talking about the movie, and he was like, "Yeah, Barack Obama made it," and I was like, "Holy shit,
so
I need to watch it." But then when you're watching it, knowing that Barack Obama's made it, and some of the references that they use in the movie, you're just a bit like, "What's your thought process here?" Like with they pulled the race card out there somewhere.
It's almost like he's telling you. It's almost like they're telling you what they got on the drawing board. Yeah.
Because the daughter says something like, "I don't trust white people." Like the black
plays right into that whole and that's the thing. I personally believe that's the divide and conquer agenda. That's the pitting different people, different races, and George Carlin has that famous bit where he says, that anything that separates and divides us, that's what the government's going to talk about: race, religion, ethnic background, sexual orientation. Like anything that keeps us separate and fighting with each other so that they can go to the bank with all of our money. I 100% believe that that's the case.
That brings me to a question that I've got burning in my mind. Hopefully you'll be able to shed some light on it. So with this divide and conquer thing, right, I've seen it happen multiple times with, I don't know, like the diversity movement, race movement, all that stuff. And then I've seen it with the Russia-Ukraine, which is dividing a lot of people. It's also about 7 other things going on there, not just
Israel, Palestine, same.
Yeah, that was my question. Like, what is going on with that's the one sort of thing that I'm looking into at the moment, which I can't wrap my head around. And I'm not saying either are right because I don't have a clue because of the amount of information that's out there on both sides. It's clearly a divide and conquer.
Mostly propaganda. Yep, mostly propaganda.
I don't know if you have any idea on what is actually going on there because I don't.
just off the top of my head, based on things I've read from political leaders of the past, you know, the Khazarian area there and the infiltration of certain bloodlines back in the day that claim to be Jewish and aren't. And there's this story that they at some ruler of that area sometime in history said we're going to exile you from Khazaria unless you choose one of the three Abrahamic religions, and they chose Judaism. And so there's this whole idea that a lot of the Kabbalah and a lot of the Jewish belief system has been infiltrated by a group of people that are maybe satanic or Luciferian or whatever, right? So that's the whole argument behind it. And a lot of people say that the Jewish people run the world, and the reason why is because they performed usury, which is, you know, everything the Federal Reserve does to central banking, you know, all that, the issuing of currency, yada, yada. So if that's true, then, and I'm not saying it is, I'm saying if that's true, then I think you need to investigate, well, who are the real Jewish people, and who are the people of different ancestry that call themselves Jewish and use the religion, but they don't, it's not being practiced in the way that, you know, whatever, you know, a actual Jewish person is, right? And then that leads us, that whole argument leads us to Palestine. And Palestine is, a lot of people make the argument that they've been persecuted and are being ethnic cleansed right now. And you know, the Gaza Strip is the most Orwellian, surveilled, crazy, you know, part of the world right now. So there is, I mean, you don't have to guess. You can look at what's actually happening and come to your own conclusions. And then, so with that being said, what I think is going on is, you know, the Rothschilds allegedly bought the land that became Israel back in, you know, the Balfour Declaration. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that timepiece from history, but if that's true, then there's clearly an agenda. And a lot of the Zionist people, Joe Biden himself said that you cannot have a civilized world without Israel. And there are people that say that the reason why Israel was created was to be a stronghold of world power in that region in order to dominate. And when you look at what's happening, that's exactly what's happening in Yemen right now. That's what's starting to happen in Gaza. That's been happening in Syria. It happened in Libya. I mean, they're getting ready to do it to Iran. So, I mean, you can see the geopolitical military industrial complex plan playing out. And there was actually General Wesley Clark. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He said that after 9/11 and the passing of the Patriot Act, that they had a plan. He was taken into an office one day and they said, you know, we have a plan to take over Syria, Libya, Iran, all these 7 countries, you know, along with it. This was in the works pre 9/11, which makes you obviously know that 9/11 was, you know, Netanyahu basically wrote a book about the fact that someone's going to take down the Twin Towers. So, I mean, all you got to do is look at all these stories and put it together. And you can see that what's going on in Israel and Palestine right now is not a pure thing. It is a very rich, wealthy, globalist, elitist plan to take over that part of the world, to take over the Yemen part of the world, the Syria part. Like, they're just expanding and they're just taking over. And that's been happening. I mean, that's happened throughout history, just the expansion of, you know, a civilization, the Ottoman Empire, you know, the American Empire, the European Empire, the Ottomans, the Persians, you know, that's what's happening. It's just imperialism at its core, in my opinion. It's the playing out of trying to take over more of the world.
Yeah. When you look at the sort of empire that we have at the moment, do you think that's coming quite close to the end now, or do you think we've still got a lot yet to see?
I'm so glad you asked me that question, because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but I have a bonus episode series called Reality Lies, Damned Lies, and Statistics on my show. And it's a strictly clip show where I call it an artfully assorted arrangement of clips that is intended to tell you a story about the current status quo, the current zeitgeist, the current spirit of the times that we are living in. And I arrange those clips in a way to tell you a story where, and I don't say a word. Sometimes I'll interject a little thing here or there, but it's just a bonus episode series that I run where I literally am telling you a story about what's going on in the world from the horse's mouth, from people actually talking about this stuff. And my next installment, number 11, I'm going to entitle it "The West Must Fall." And I'm going to tell the story of how I think there is a concerted effort by the big club globalist world planners to destroy the West. And I think the Chinese are going to play a big part of that. I think Russia is going to play a big part of that. And if there is going to be a World War III, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be NATO in the West versus pretty much everybody else. So we'll see. We shall see.
Do you think the elites we have in the West are also hedging their bets with China, or do you think they are dealing 100%. With China to?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the elites of all countries, I call them the new bourgeoisie, I call them the new aristocrats. I think they are the ancient bloodlines of old, just evolved. And
so yeah, essentially they're just a global oligarch that is just pulling strings around the world, no matter what nation you're a part of. It doesn't matter.
Correct. All they got to do is find a point of entry that works for them, and they can infiltrate and do what they're going to do. Absolutely. I don't think nationalism is going to be around too much longer. I really don't. I think that we're getting closer and closer to world government, no matter how. I mean, when you look at what's been going on in Africa over the past 20, 30 years, when you look at what's going on in Europe, when you look at the Orwellian crazy communist society that China has become, and how fast they're using our Western ideals of wealth creation and industrialism to create the biggest navy in the world right now. They significantly outnumber us population wise. And right now, a lot of people are saying that they're sending a lot of their countrymen, their military age men, to the southern border of the States to infiltrate the United States. And when you look at the fact that the way that China operates is that you cannot travel outside of China unless you're on official Chinese CCP business. So how are these people? I don't buy the argument that these people escaped from tyranny and they wanted to come to the United States in hopes of having a better life. It's like, no, dude, you couldn't have even left without permission. So clearly you were sent here by probably the Chinese Communist Party. So I don't buy that. I think that China has big plans for the world, and I think that they are in the pocket of the World Economic Forum. They're in the pocket of the World Health Organization. Klaus Schwab has admitted that they've had a great relationship with the CCP for 20, 30 years. It doesn't take much to see what's going on. Like, it don't take a lot of connecting the dots to see what the plan is. So that's what I'm going to do in my next clip episode. I'm going to show my listeners that I believe that the world planners think that the West must fall, and I'm going to play a lot of clips illustrating why I think that is.
So you mentioned the US border. What the fuck is going on there? Because you'd think at a time with war in Russia, Ukraine, war in Israel, and the US being so heavily involved in both, surely you would lock down your borders to make sure no terrorists or anybody, dangerous people, infiltrate through
you would think. Yep. That is not the case, though. Well, that plays right into all of the propaganda agenda too. It's like, because what's going to happen is people are going to say, well, the United States has been trying to nation build and spread democracy around the world, right? And they've created a lot of death and destruction, and people are going to be pissed off. There's going to be blowback. There's going to be backlash. You're going to get suicide bombers. You're going to, you're going to get Islamic jihadism. You're going to get all these things, right? So even if it is controlled and planned and being perpetrated by the big club, you can see how the propaganda narrative is going to say, in retaliation for all of the horrors that the Americans have done around the world for so many years. Now it's your time to pay the piper. And now we're sending our people from all over the world. We're going to come take down the United States. And that's what I think that's how the story is going to go, if that in fact ends up being what happens. And back to Israel, a lot of people are saying that there's Hezbollah and Hamas sleeper cells all over the United States that have infiltrated through the southern border. There are terrorist groups being trained and funded and trained down in South America, all over the place. And they're getting funneled up to the United States with a lot of financial backing. I would make the argument it's George Soros and open society, but that's just me. I don't have any facts or evidence to prove that. I just, looking at what they did with the protests for January 6th too, but for the George Floyd era, the COVID 2020, all that stuff, that was all Soros and open society. So if I had to guess, there are intelligence community and world planner big money bringing many military-aged men to the West, training them, funding them, and funneling them up to the United States. And that can only mean one thing, if that's true. So my fellow Americans and my fellow world citizens, you be the judge. You tell me what's going on, and I think it's only a matter of time when we're going to find out. And I dread that day.
Do you have any optimistic outlook on the future?
Yeah. My optimistic outlook is that I and you guys and many people like us are going to use this power of connection and technology to communicate worldwide. And I hope that people drop their egos and start paying attention and start listening and start doing the work of understanding the real history of this world and believe in whatever higher power, whatever you need to do to get you through the day. Start getting involved and participating in that, because if we don't, the outcome is going to be inevitably negative. And I have faith in the divine human spirit. I believe that people are capable of much, 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 much more than they give themselves credit for, that they want to tell themselves. And I think that it only takes a catalyst of people like you, people like me, podcasters, anybody who's doing social media and has a message and something to say. It's only a matter of time, especially the fact that we mentioned this before. AI is being programmed by us. So if the algorithms are going to shut down certain information, over time, people are going to start asking questions. Why is this type of information being censored and shut down? And then once you dive into it, you realize, oh, this is the ticket. This is the way out. This is how we save anything. So, that's that portion of my optimism. The other portion of my optimism is I've already lived so much life and had the opportunity to do so many amazing things in my life that if tomorrow the Grim Reaper pulled my ticket and it's my time to go, I'd have absolutely no problem with that. I'm ready to go at any time. And I didn't always feel that way, but I think I'm just, that's how my life has gone. I have gratitude and I have reverence and I have appreciation for the fact that I even got to appear in this physical body in this realm. I got to walk around and breathe on this planet for a while. And for that, I'm very thankful. And I wish more people thought that way, because the world would be a much more peaceful place if people would start going to war with themselves instead of trying to keep fighting with each other.
Yeah, that's really well said. And even on your first point, where we'll do with the work that we're all doing here, it's all basically what we're doing is bringing balance into an unbalanced world. So the more people that can be involved in these sort of balanced discussions and offer even just a conversation or even just listening to a conversation brings so much more balance into the world. And if more and more people sort of gave it just a little bit of attention, we're on the road to a better place.
And that's a reason to be optimistic right there, man. It's and I always make that argument, like, what do you want out of life and what are you willing to do to get it? You know what I mean? Like I want everybody to ask themselves that, like, what makes you happy? What makes you tick? Figure out who you are, figure out how, you want to conduct yourself in this world, and then devote your life to doing those things. And, there's that old saying, I forget who said it, but, find what you love and let it kill you. And I love that. I love that idea, because we are finite creatures. Nobody's getting out of this world alive, right? So it's like your life is short. And I feel like so many people walk around thinking that they're going to live forever. And they conduct themselves in this world in a way to where there aren't consequences or future plans about the fact that you're not going to be around forever. So what do you want to leave behind? What do you want to have your legacy be? Like, do you want to be remembered for your morals and your values and the type of person that you were to people? I feel like some of the most important people in history were never popular or famous or celebrated. And I feel like the world needs more of those people walking around with the courage and the knowledge and the resolve to teach and to inform others, whether they are receptive or not. All you got to do is use the propaganda's tactics of repetition. I say this on my show all the time. Keep hammering people with the same ideas until they within themselves listen and hear it, and finally they have that epiphany moment. And now we've created another truther. We've created another person that is punk rock and says, you know what, I'm not going to believe in the authority anymore. Now I'm going to figure out things for myself. And I think if that idea reaches critical mass, I think that the world planners are in big trouble. There are millions more of us than there are of them. And all it takes is a small minority of that to band together and organize to figure out how to get past it. So that makes me optimistic.
Do you think the pandemic was a push too far for them? Do you think they made the wrong move at the wrong time? Because I've noticed a lot more people waking up since the pandemic.
Yep, I think they showed their hand a little too much, and I think people started sniffing it out, especially people that witnessed the whole 9/11 thing go down in the United States and already had questions on that. As soon as the Patriot Act came into existence, one more slow usurpation of our freedoms here in the States, that, the slow destruction of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the whole, that whole entire thing was fishy and questionable from the start. And now in retrospect, a lot of people know that there was probably some Israel involvement in that. And I think that it was an inside job for sure. And I think that those people who, lived through that developed a healthy skepticism about government and the benevolence of those that we elect to public office, right? And when COVID happened, I mean, I remember vividly getting phone calls from people that knew that I'm into this kind of stuff, and people that I never would have thought were going to reach out to me and ask me questions. And that was the topic was, hey, I know you're into this kind of stuff, Andrew. What do you think is going on? And I said, I think it's a Chinese bioweapon. I think this was created for a purpose, and it was kept on a shelf for the day that it was needed. And when the Trump train came into town, I think that the opposition to him, the alleged opposition, because there's an argument that Trump's on the team too, and it's just the playing out of the narrative, right? But for whatever reason, whatever group of people decided to drop the COVID thing on the world, it was exactly a very Hegelian dialectic thing, just like 9/11 was, that was implemented in order to create the environment for a desired outcome. And that outcome was further usurpation of freedoms and the further taking of power and control by the elite.
And when you say it was when Trump was in control, it could well have just been a panic button for them to say, shit, we need to do something. Let's release the...
Yeah, like the argument was, we want to do something on Trump's watch that will get him out of office possibly, or will make him unelectable for another term. And I don't know if there's any truth to that. I think that COVID probably would have happened sooner or later, regardless. If China decided, because I think China's involvement of it is enormous. I think that China had a big big part to play in that. And I think they had some World Economic Forum, World Health Organization.
Well, when you've got Bill Gates doing TED
meetings.
Talks on the pandemic, then
Exactly.
something's coming.
100%. And Klaus Schwab and all, Yuval Noah Harari, the whole crew. Yep. I think that, and again, if they're the occult magicians that everybody theorizes and prophesizes about, and they say that, part of being a Luciferian is that you can't lie to people. It ruins your karma. You have to tell them to their face what you're planning to do, and it's up to them to figure it out. You got to let them in. You have to let the devil in, right? Eve ate from the tree of life, right? Blah, blah, blah. So, that's kind of what I think is going on. I mean, I think that's a big part of all these philosophies and historical narratives come together, more so as time goes on, and it's easier to see for those that are looking for it. It's easier to see what the plan is.
Right, because not too long ago, I heard Dave Chappelle talking about somewhere on his journey of Hollywood. He was asked to put a dress on, and he said, "Fuck you, I don't want to put a dress on."
Yeah, I am not participating in your humiliation ritual.
Yeah, right. Since that, I've seen that video and witnessed him saying that. I keep seeing these actors who are all on their journeys in Hollywood get to a certain level, and believe it or not, they start putting a dress on in a certain movie. It just keeps coming out everywhere at me. I think it was John Cena's just put a new film out, and on the cover of the film, he's got a dress on. He's sat on the floor, and I thought,
yeah, and then he's at the Oscars naked, and then they put him in a toga. So that's all occult symbolism right there too. So very interesting. See, I mean, they tell you it is so. There are countless examples to be discovered by people that are interested in conversations like this and want to do the research and the investigation for themselves. I say this on my show all the time. It is only a matter of time for you to start discovering for yourself example after example after example after example of what we podcasters in this realm, this community, have been talking about for a while now. And I always say on my show, I'm not lying. I'm not making this stuff up. You can go find this information by your own free will. You do not have to listen to people like me. Go do the work and figure it out for yourself. And you will find the truth. You will find it.
I feel like just listening to people you're only doing half the work, only on half the journey, because it was only because all through my teens, I would love listening to these conspiracies on YouTube and going down these crazy rabbit holes. And it's kind of built me to where I am today. But it only actually started falling into place once I went away on my own and started digging in research and finding connections, finding trends. That's when the big switch flicks and you're just like, oh, holy shit.
That big aha moment that all of we podcasters, we're just where you have that epiphany and it really feels like your frequency just elevated. You literally feel like your awareness, like, oh my God, I have the sight now. And then you say to yourself, what else is out there that I can discover? Now you're one of us.
Yeah, now you're gone. Then you look back and think, hold on a minute, was ignorance bliss back then? Would I have been better off not flicking that switch at that time? But by that point, it's gone.
Well, yeah, but again, like you guys asked me before, like, and I get this all the time. People are like, "Oh my God, you're so black-pilled. Do you have optimism? Are you positive? Do you have any positive outlook?" And I do, but I've had the courage to face truth, which is step one. That's step one, and then you have to kind of swim in that abyss and not lose yourself to evil and not caring and not like. It really is. That's why I always say start your quest. It's a quest. Like it is like a rite of passage, climbing the mountaintop and weathering the storm and then coming back and taking over control of your tribe or whatever, right? It's like that's literally how it was throughout history. And that's how it needs to be today. And no one talks about that. And that's what I always try to reiterate to people is like, look, life can be so much more than it is to you right now. And the only thing standing in the way of that happening is your own mind and your fear and your laziness. If you can get over that and you can start moving towards courage and being able to accept the real world for what it is and not running, not tucking your tail and running because it's too much or it's too scary, right? Like if you can get yourself to that point, that will create a strength and an optimism within you to where you really, I think that's how I have developed my reverence and my gratitude for being alive. Because I was raised in a church. I was raised very religious, but as soon as I got out of my mom from underneath my mother's roof, I strayed far away from the church for a very long time. And now I'm getting to a point in my life where I'm starting to go, oh, now I'm starting to see why a lot of these religious ideas are so important. And it took the quest. It took that road that I walked on to get to that point. And so many people don't even take the first step. And that's the problem with why the world is as it is today. In my
Right. Yeah, you need to build that resilience, and not a lot of factors factor into it. One of which is no one's even got the slightest attention span to even, because I think the way I read about it a while back now was you need to be able to learn to sit in the dark, and eventually you'll start seeing the light. But so many people are, as soon as the light turns off, people are scared and they just push like get me out button, and then they're back into the normal reality, just like the slight sort of inkling of a dark room. But just you need to, then it's going on that path of sitting in the dark, understanding the dark, and then once you're ready, you'll find the light. You just need to stray over there, and then the light is the optimism. But it's easy just to sit in that dark and think, "Holy shit, everything is fucked." It's so easy because we've all been through that on this call. But you need to ride that wave to be able to honestly see where things are going and see it as an opportunity, right? Like all of us are doing this, we're restoring balance into the world. Let's say everything does go to shit. There's a good, solid community of people that have a lot of information, have learned a lot of information, soaked up a lot of information that will still be standing after everything goes in the pan.
Yeah, I think you got to go through some stuff. I think for me personally, I think I've experienced so many situations in my life where I got close to losing my head, and I've been in situations before where I had to make some tough decisions, and I am the type of person that I learned my lessons the very very hard way. And because of that, I think I think I got to a point where I said to myself, I don't want to feel like this when difficult things happen to me in my life. So if I can't change the world so that that stops happening to me, then the only thing I can do is change myself somehow. And so I think that's when I started realizing, you know, you really once you realize that you can, you know, being able to separate yourself and your ego from things, thinking that you have all the answers, thinking that you're so cool, you're hot shit, you're, you know, this desire for acceptance. Um, I think that eventually for me, I got to a point where I said, I want to be calm, cool, collected, and content with anything that happens to me in my life, no matter how good or how bad. I want to enjoy the good and I want to learn during the bad, but I'm never going to uh, allow the difficulties and the voices and the negative self-talk and the feeling sorry for yourself creep in so much so that you become, you know, suicidal or drug and alcohol addicted, or, you know, so many people just run from, I say this on my show all the time, people that are addicted to things aren't addicted to the drug or the substance. They're addicted to escaping their reality. And I think that that's the wrong way. I think you need to run towards you need to run towards reality. You need to run towards the truth, because that's where you'll find strength and courage. That's where you'll realize that you have to look at yourself as being a part of something bigger than yourself. And I think I think that people will learn that they can take a lot of comfort and stress out of their minds and out of their lives by just focusing on the little things that make you happy. Love your friends, love your family, do the things that you enjoy. Don't do the things that you don't enjoy, and don't think that you have all the answers, and don't think that you're better than people, and don't fight with people over dumb shit. And like, just it seems so cliche what all the stuff I'm saying right now, but when it comes down to it, that really is where happiness is located for me. And you know, I think that people drive them literally. I think that a lot of people literally drive themselves to death, to the grave, worrying and about things that are not real and that they completely invent in their own mind. And I think that takes down more people than a lot of us want to talk about. And that's why, that's why I'm always trying to tell people, like, if you can get yourself to a place where the most difficult, death in the family, brief, a quick tragedy, you lose 3 of your friends in one day, war is declared in whatever part of the world, instead of getting so fearful and acting out and freaking out and overreacting to it, if you can just find that center and go back to your whatever gives you strength, and say to yourself, nope, I know how to deal with this. I'm not going to freak out. This isn't going to be fun. This isn't going to be easy, but this is part of life. This is part of the game. This is part of the deal. And I think that the more people get to that point and don't blindly just, this blind faith, I feel like people are so quick to believe anything they're told. They're so fucking gullible and naive. And I think that is cultivated in the media and in the social media, all that shit. I think that's playing a big part in the, what used to be an adult. I see 40, 50-year-old people walking around acting like juvenile teenagers still. And I think that's all by design. I think that's the club wants that to be that way. And that's why people don't like listening to people like me. Remind them constantly, look, there is a way out. There is a way for you to better your life. There is a way for you to get out of this headspace. There is a way for you to conquer everything that gives you troubles in your life. You just have to be willing to make that decision. And so many people are not willing to make that decision.
It also takes hard work to get to that level as well, where you need to be able to face your demons and work through them and push yourself and be determined to get through it and get through to the other side, which I don't see a lot in society. People don't have that willingness to work hard and push themselves and have that discipline to get through it.
Yeah, that's sadly true, and it's because the culture isn't set up to cultivate that. You know what I mean? You need the culture and the society to be on the same page and develop people in a certain way, and if you don't do that, then you're going to get what we have right now. You're going to get transhumanism, transgenderism, the woke agenda. You're going to get pedophilia. You're going to get human trafficking. You're going to get all this crazy, nutty, immoral, illogical, whatever you want to say. Like it's, they said back in the day that the reason for religion and the reason for the Renaissance and the Enlightenment and the creation of the civilized world is because we were beasts. We were literally beasts acting like, and we needed a moral code. We needed reverence for a higher power in order to get us all on the same page in order to create a society. So if that's the building blocks that got us to where we are today, how do you think we continue to do that? And so then once you realize that, you say, okay, well, how is the society actually doing this? Are they doing these things to cultivate all these Enlightenment principles? And no, clearly they're not. So now you know that the people in charge don't want that. They do not want that. And as soon as people realize that, now you can say, okay, what is their plan? And then once you start doing the work and digging into it, you start realizing, oh, there is a better way. There is another path. I need to figure out what works for me. And I need to realize that I can't trust everybody in a position of power and authority that wants to tell me pretty puppy dog and ice cream stories about how great their country and the world is. It's not true. But that doesn't mean you need to be pessimistic. You can still be optimistic. But like you said, it takes hard work. It's not easy to get yourself to that mental frame of mind, but it's either that or the alternative. Choose your road. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as well, like, it's so easy for you talk about escapism with alcohol or drugs, but the other thing that we've got is a mobile device. So think about like when times get hard for people. Let's say, and I'm not saying super hard, I mean hard in terms of like you're in an awkward conversation which you don't feel like you can commit to. You pull out your phone and you start scrolling all this. So that form of escapism, people don't even realize that they're doing it. For example, you sat on a train or something, and you're sort of so unequipped to just deal with sitting and listening to your own thoughts that you straight away just go to your phone or pick up something just to take your mind off your actual reality of your mind. And the what I've further reflection, what I've seen, what I've thought about is, let's say someone's in a really awkward situation where they don't feel good and they're not equipped to handle that because they've not built any resilience. They'll go on the phone and go on Instagram and then get propaganda just thrown at them. So they think whenever there's something that's hard in their life, they can then divide that attention onto, I don't know, the woke agenda. And then through some weird sort of programming, they start seeing the woke agenda as something which they can then channel their emotions to make them feel better about what's going wrong in their life. That makes sense because so many people just getting distracted by their own feelings and then clinging on to some absolute crap that doesn't even mean anything, basically, because it's there to play it through.
And it's almost like this is everything you're saying is a perfect example of everything we've already talked about as far as how technology and AI changes human beings, about how there is no society out there cultivating strength and self-determination and all that stuff. The wokeism and all that does give people a respite, a way to where they can virtue signal, and that gives them some small sense of connection or superiority. Yeah, whatever it is that makes them feel better in that small moment. Then it goes away, and then they have to chase that again. And there's no thought. There's no investigation. There's no, like you said, it is very, not to be pessimistic even more or black-pilled, but like it makes me wonder sometimes, is it already too late? Like, has the big club plan already evolved past the point of no return, and it doesn't matter? Now it's only a matter of time as the generations play out to where the common mindset of the average human being is so similar that it plays right into their plan, into their hands. And so I hope that isn't the case, but just think about it. If that really is the demon ridden Luciferian world that exists and that we're moving even closer towards, then doesn't that make the average person say to themselves, well, maybe I need to return to nature. Maybe I need to return to God and reverence and gratitude. Maybe I need to return to love and acceptance of my fellow men and women, regardless of race, color, creed, sexual orientation, yada, yada, et cetera, right? Doesn't that make you say to yourself, maybe the old ways were better than the new ways? And I hope that people get themselves to that realization eventually, because that's what I personally believe. I feel like the old ways were the best ways, and I think that there's lost wisdom that has purposely been hidden from us. And I think that there was a race of human beings on this planet at one point in history that was a much more utopian, enjoyable existence with, free energy, allegedly, and maybe Nephilim giants building pyramids for everybody and creating aqueducts, and who knows what they've erased from history and told us in our schools since our childhood. So and I know that varies throughout different cultures throughout the world. So but when you put it all together, power is always in control. And I think that a good place to start for anybody that is interested in this stuff is to start looking at the history of the aristocratic, royal bloodlines, and all you got to do is a little bit of reading about, the Rothschilds or the Warburg family. There's so many, the black nobility, the the Pope, the Catholic Church. Are you kidding me? The Jesuits.
There's actually
Like,
so many avenues to start.
There's so many avenues that all you got to do is get a cursory understanding of a lot of that, and your brain's going to go, this sounds like a movie. This sounds like fairy tales. But guess what? This is really the history of your world. You can't get away from that, people. You can't get around that, So.
Yeah, no, that's great. Right, should we wrap this one up?
Yeah. Cheers, Andrew.
All right, yeah. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me run my mouth for so long. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. No, it was a good talk. I think if you're willing, well, I think we should get you back on and go down, because we spoke about a lot, but I think there's a few tangents that we can take in what you've been talking about.
Yeah, and I have a heavy case of scatterbrain ADHD, so I sometimes need someone to focus me into one direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
I don't think we're the best people to help with that, because
that's okay.
We're the same.
No, I'm just saying, like,
we love a good tangent though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, for like a focused show, if I go into it saying, okay, we're only talking about this topic for this episode, then I can focus in and be like, okay, now I'm gonna I'll set up some level of material to where we're staying on topic,
Right.
But if you just let me go stream of consciousness, I'm gonna tie it all together. So yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Do you want to quickly plug your channels, your website, and even if you want to plug somewhere for someone to start listening to your stuff, where would you tell them to start?
Yeah. Okay. So my stage name, this character I do, is Andrew for America. You can find Andrew for America on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. On Facebook, my page is the Politics and Punk Rock Podcast. My website, politicsandpunkrockpodcast.com. There you can find links to all of the episodes. The blog section is going to have a lot of lyrics and from punk rock songs. Stuff I've written, stories that I've read on the show before that people can go download and read for themselves. I have a little about me section talking about me. And then there's a page there where I recommend podcasts, and I have contact information if you guys want to get a hold of me. There's a link to my SoundCloud page where you can go check out my personal music that I've done throughout the years. Yeah, so I was in touring punk rock bands for like 17 years out in Southern California. So that's part of my history. And then there's also a link to a Spotify playlist called the Politics and Punk Rock Podcast playlist, where I have a bunch of punk rock songs, all the songs I've ever played on the show and featured on the show, you can find there. So, and then as far as a place to start, I recommend books all the time. And I think a few, just off the top of my head, books that I really think people need to read. 1984 by George Orwell. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley. And let's see, there's a few more. The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall is a good one. Fire in the Minds of Men by John Billington. Anything that's going to talk to you about history, about controversial subjects. Don't go into it believing everything you read right away. I always say, read everything you can, and when you find commonalities, common threads, common themes, it's kind of like reading a Yelp review. Like don't believe the 0-star reviews. Just because some, one unique situation, idiot came into a restaurant and wanted to bitch about the place, right? I always say, look at all the reviews, the positive and the negative, and then look for the common threads, common themes. And once you get to that point, you can start forming in your own mind something resembling truth and reality. So, yeah, those are some good places to start. Really, I encourage anybody to read. Find an hour out of your day, read a chapter of a book, and just time block it into your life. And over time, you will discover that you have become a much more well-read, intelligent person. And that'll give you a little sense of accomplishment. And then maybe that'll give you some courage and some determination to press on. some motivation to continue your quest and get past the fear and the laziness and the anxiety and the apathy, and find some like-minded individuals and enjoy your short life while you have it to the best of your ability. Sounds pessimistic, but I am optimistic. I swear to God.
No, that was all sounds amazing. The whole conversation was amazing. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, invite me back whenever. I love to come on, guest on any show anytime. Let me know.
Yeah, 100%. Let's stay in touch anyway.
Will do. Absolutely. You guys got my email. Hit me up.
Yeah, all right. See you later.
Cheers, Andrew.
Take care, guys.
See you later.